Hello everyone, welcome back to the Business English Podcast. Actually, first a question for you. Have you ever felt stuck with your English, despite trying different study methods?
Indeed, people often put in lots of effort, but they hit a wall. Couldn't agree more that it's frustrating. That's exactly how I see it, because small habits can have a big impact on progress.
Precisely. That's why today's topic is so important. We're talking about 9 bad habits that ruin your English. We'll explore why these habits happen and how to avoid them.
You nailed it. This topic matters because breaking bad habits sets you on a faster path to fluency. So we'll show you how to replace these habits with better ones.
Exactly. Today's podcast will give you practical tips and real-world examples. We'll walk through the main points, then share English lessons and final tips.
Absolutely. We want you to stay engaged by sharing your thoughts in the comments. Basically, we learn by output, not just input.
That's right, so please share your struggles or insights below. Let's build a community where we improve together.
No doubt about it. If you're new here, give this video a like and subscribe. We have plenty more episodes coming your way.
All right, let's get started with 9 bad habits that ruin your English and see how we can fix them. So in this segment, we'll break down the 9 most common habits that hold learners back. First, we'll list them all. Then we'll discuss why they're problematic. And finally, we'll share some examples from real-life situations.
Exactly. Let's start with habit 1. Translating everything in your head. People get stuck because they try to form English sentences by converting directly from their native language. That slows down fluency and causes awkward phrasing.
Precisely. Habit 2. Avoiding conversation. Some folks only focus on grammar exercises, but they rarely speak. That leads to nervousness when they finally have to talk. Actually, conversation practice is key to building confidence.
Couldn't agree more. Then there's habit 3. Ignoring pronunciation. Many learners think it's secondary, but if you don't train your mouth and ears, you might misunderstand or fail to be understood. That can seriously limit your growth.
Indeed, habit 4. Relying too much on filler words like and you know. Don't get me wrong, native speakers use these too. But if your speech is mostly filler, your message won't come across clearly.
Absolutely. Next is habit 5. Fear of making mistakes. This one really stops progress because you avoid risk. People feel embarrassed, so they stick to safe expressions. By doing that, they never learn from errors.
Right. Habit 6. Memorizing isolated words. That approach makes it hard to remember context. Instead, it's better to learn words in phrases or collocations. That way, you build fluency and sound more natural.
Exactly. Habit 7. Skipping reading. Reading builds vocabulary, grammar intuition, and cultural context, yet many folks only watch videos. While that's helpful, reading is still an unbeatable way to see language in action.
You're spot on. Habit 8. Neglecting feedback. Some learners never let anyone correct them. If you don't get critique from teachers or peers, you could keep repeating errors without realizing. That holds you back big time.
That's right. Finally, habit 9. Inconsistent study. People often binge study, then vanish for weeks. That pattern hurts retention. Regular bite-sized practice is more effective than cramming every once in a while.
Totally. So those are our 9 habits. Translating everything, avoiding conversation, ignoring pronunciation, overusing fillers, fearing mistakes, memorizing single words, skipping reading, neglecting feedback, and inconsistent study. They matter because in our fast-paced world, effective communication is crucial for global business success.
Exactly. For instance, in many companies, employees work with international teams. If someone constantly translates in their head or avoids speaking, they might miss key opportunities. Companies value people who can discuss ideas smoothly in English.
Indeed. Think about remote collaboration platforms. If you're not comfortable with calls or chats in English, you could struggle to express yourself. Also, we see examples in customer service roles where clear, confident English can boost client satisfaction.
You nailed it. So mastering these points isn't just about exams, it's about building trust and showing professionalism. That's why we wanted to highlight these 9 bad habits. They truly ruin your English if left unchecked.
No doubt about it. These habits might appear small, but they add up. In many real-world scenarios, like interviews or presentations, they can weaken your performance and credibility.
Precisely. We want you to recognize these traps before they hold you back. Alright, let's move on and learn some key vocabulary from our conversation so far.
Alright, let's explore 5 key terms that popped up. First is awkward phrasing. That means wording that sounds unnatural or uncomfortable. For example, saying, "Please kindly to help me," might feel off in English.
Exactly. Awkward phrasing comes from direct translation or incorrect structure. You can avoid it by reading and listening more. Then you'll naturally pick up common expressions.
Next is collocations. Basically, these are word pairs or groups that frequently go together, like take a break, heavy rain, or strong coffee. Learning collocations helps you sound more fluent.
Absolutely. If you only memorize single words, you might create strange combinations. For instance, saying big rain instead of heavy rain. Paying attention to collocations really boosts your natural flow.
Third, we used cramming. That means trying to learn a lot in a very short time. Students often cram before exams. It might help short term, but it's not great for long-term mastery.
Indeed, and that links to the idea of binge study. This is our 4th term. People might study for hours on one day, then take a break for weeks. That approach can hurt consistency.
Precisely. A more consistent schedule, even with shorter sessions, often yields better results. Now, for our 5th term, embarrassed. We mentioned the fear of mistakes. Being embarrassed is feeling uneasy or ashamed about something you did.
Yes, and a lot of learners avoid speaking because they feel embarrassed. However, mistakes are part of the process. Nobody improves without a few errors along the way.
Exactly. So, to recap, awkward phrasing, collocations, cramming, binge study, and embarrassed. These words tie directly to our 9 bad habits. Understanding them helps you identify and fix those pitfalls in your daily practice.
Totally. Let's move on now to some practical tips for overcoming these habits. Remember, keep these vocabulary terms in mind as we go forward.
By the way, if you have any trouble with these terms, try creating short sentences. For instance, I feel embarrassed when I speak too fast, or I avoid cramming by studying daily. Repetition really helps.
Absolutely. Practicing with real examples cements these words in your mind. All right, let's head over to some practical tips for tackling those 9 bad habits in everyday life.
Let's talk about how to tackle each habit in daily life. First, for translating everything in your head. Read simple English texts and summarize them out loud. That trains you to think directly in English instead of your native language.
Exactly. You can also watch short videos in English and try to paraphrase what you heard. By doing that, you reduce the urge to translate word for word. Eventually, you'll develop a more natural flow.
Moving on to avoiding conversation, find a language partner or join a speaking club online. Even a few minutes each day can help. The key is consistent interaction, so you get used to real-time exchanges.
Precisely. If you can't find a partner, record yourself on your phone. Listen back to catch mistakes or awkward phrases. It might feel weird, but it's super effective for building speaking confidence.
Next, for ignoring pronunciation, try shadowing exercises. Listen to a native speaker and repeat their sentences almost simultaneously. Mimic the rhythm, intonation, and stress. This technique is popular among actors learning accents.
Totally. Another tip is to use free pronunciation tools online. They often show you mouth positions or let you compare waveforms. You might discover small changes that make a big difference.
Now, about overusing fillers. Practicing short, clear sentences helps. If you notice yourself saying too much, pause instead. Silence can be more powerful than constant filler words.
Absolutely. You can also record casual conversations, then count your filler words. Awareness is the first step to controlling them. You'll sound more polished once you reduce unnecessary fillers.
Regarding the fear of making mistakes, try focusing on communication rather than perfection. Ask for feedback after each conversation. People are usually kind, and they understand you're learning. Mistakes can actually spark memorable learning moments.
Couldn't agree more. For memorizing single words, switch to phrases. Use flashcards with short sentences or collocations. For example, learn take medicine, not just medicine. This method helps your brain store language in chunks.
Indeed, if you're skipping reading, try short articles on topics you enjoy. Reading helps you see grammar and context and discover new expressions. Ebooks, blogs, or news sites are all great resources.
Right, for neglecting feedback, consider getting a tutor or joining an online community where people correct each other. If you keep making the same mistakes, you need someone to point them out so you can improve.
Finally, to fix inconsistent study, set small daily goals, maybe read one article, watch a short clip, or learn 5 new phrases each day. Tracking progress with a simple checklist can keep you motivated and on track.
Exactly. People often follow the latest trends, like language apps or interactive platforms, which can help if used regularly. The best approach is the one you stick to. Consistency beats everything else.
By the way, scheduling weekly or monthly reviews can be really helpful. For instance, revisit your old notes, test yourself on past vocabulary, and see what you've retained. It keeps your knowledge fresh and active.
Indeed. And remember to celebrate small wins, like finishing a book chapter or having a fluent conversation. Motivation thrives on recognizing progress. All right, let's move to our next English lesson.
Let's jump into our second English lesson. We'll cover 5 terms: shadowing, waveforms, chunks, interactive platforms, and thrive. These words came up while discussing practical tips.
Absolutely. First, shadowing. This technique involves repeating what a speaker says, almost in real time. For instance, you might listen to a podcast and immediately echo the words. It helps you match pronunciation and intonation.
Exactly. Shadowing is great for building muscle memory. You train your mouth to follow the natural rhythm of English. Many actors use this method when learning new accents.
Next is waveforms. You see these on audio editing software or pronunciation apps. They're the graphical representation of sound waves. When you compare your waveform to a native speaker's, you might spot differences in stress or timing.
Indeed, that visual feedback can be really helpful. Some learners find it easier to notice pronunciation gaps when they see them as waveforms. It's a bit like comparing your pitch to a reference track.
Right, now chunks. This means groups of words that form natural units, such as make progress or set goals. Learning language in chunks is more effective than memorizing single words.
Precisely. When you store phrases as chunks, your brain retrieves them faster. Plus, you sound more fluent and less robotic. It's like remembering dance steps rather than individual moves.
Couldn't agree more. Our 4th term is interactive platforms. We mentioned apps or websites where you can practice quizzes, join forums, or use AEI tools to get feedback. Interactivity keeps you engaged and supports active learning.
Exactly. And many modern language platforms offer instant corrections, which helps you fix mistakes quickly. By the way, you can often pair these tools with a real tutor for the best results.
Last, we have thrive. It means to grow or develop successfully, often under challenging conditions. For example, he thrives under pressure, meaning he performs really well when stressed.
Absolutely. In language learning, we want to thrive, not just survive. That means continuously improving, adapting, and pushing ourselves to new levels of fluency.
Indeed, so that's shadowing, waveforms, chunks, interactive platforms, and thrive. Keep these terms handy and try to use them in your practice. All right, let's move to our closing session.
All right, let's wrap up. We covered 9 bad habits that ruin your English, from translating in your head to inconsistent study. Then we discussed practical tips like speaking more often, shadowing, and learning in chunks.
Exactly. We also looked at 2 English lessons, highlighting key terms like awkward phrasing, collocations, cramming, binge study, embarrassed, and more. Hopefully those definitions and examples help you in real situations.
Indeed. Our practical tips included creating a regular study schedule, seeking feedback, and using interactive platforms. We also encouraged focusing on pronunciation and building confidence through conversation.
Absolutely. If you integrate these strategies, you'll likely see steady improvement. The main takeaway is to recognize bad habits before they become bigger obstacles. With consistent effort, you'll thrive in business English settings.
Couldn't agree more. We hope this podcast gave you a clear roadmap to overcome pitfalls and reach higher fluency. Remember, mistakes are natural, and progress happens when you apply new insights regularly.
Precisely. Let us know your experiences and thoughts in the comments. We love hearing your ideas, and we'll keep offering tips to support your journey. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you found value here.
You nailed it. Thank you for joining us today. Keep practicing, stay consistent, and we'll see you next time on the Business English Podcast.